Welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening Ask the Doc call. It is such a pleasure to be here and to see all of you today. My name is Lynn Matthews. I am in Arizona and I host this call every Tuesday with Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, who is in Charlottesville, Virginia. If this is your first time, I'd like to welcome you. The information you're going to learn tonight is just fascinating. It's all about the world of redox, which might be a very new term for you. And you're in the right place to learn about it. I believe Dr. Hoffman really is one of the most gifted speakers on this topic. She really puts it into terms that all of us can understand. But, redox is literally the energy that powers all life. Nothing happens in our bodies, our pets' bodies, without a redox reaction. And until about 20 something years ago, we didn't really know a lot about this, but a lot has changed. And it's really changed a lot about how we approach health and vitality and wellness. And that's what we're going to explore tonight. Many people come to this call and the one that we do on Saturday with Dr. Hoffman's colleague, Dr. Silverman, because they have a health challenge and they want to see, could this be part of the solution? Maybe you're here because a loved one, a colleague, a friend, a family member has a health challenge and you're investigating it for them. Or perhaps like Dr. Hoffman and myself, you want to be proactive with your health, kind of head things off before they can even become anything that gets labeled by a doctor. And so you're here looking to see if this could be part of, more of a proactive means for you to deal with your health as you move through life. Some people look at this because they're interested in the athletic benefits. And as I say every week, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete to get the benefits. I love to bike and hike, and even people who like to just go to the gym, or anyone with kids, anyone that wants more energy, right? More endurance in their day so they can get more out of their day, can certainly benefit from the athletic benefits of this. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And many people are interested and intrigued by some of the anti-aging benefits, because none of us can turn back the clock, right? It keeps marching forward. And it's not just what we see in the mirror every day, right? More of the cosmetic outward appearances that tend to change over time, but it's also other things, more subtle things, remembering where your keys are, remembering somebody's name, recovering from illnesses, more energy, sleeping better, all the things that tend to go down a little bit as we get older. What does this have to do with that? And can this help? So all of these things we're going to touch on. And the last reason people tend to look at this and are intrigued by it is because when you have a breakthrough of this magnitude, a way to truly address health in a way that we've never been able to in human history, there is an opportunity there to make a really big difference in the world. And as you're doing that, to generate some income doing it. So some people are curious about, what does it look like to link arms with people like myself and Dr. Hoffman and the person that invited you to bring this to the world. So it is our intention to touch on all of these things tonight during Dr. Hoffman's presentation. But the most important thing for us is that if any questions arise, we want to make sure you get those answered tonight. So as she's doing her presentation, the chat bar in the bottom, if you click on that, you can type your questions in there. And when we're all done with the presentation, we will go back, start at the top, and go through all of your questions. But right now, I would love to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. We met a number of years ago because of ASEA. I don't know if she would be in my life right now if it wasn't for this incredible technology. And my world is certainly better because of it. Dr. Hoffman, as I said, is in Charlottesville, Virginia. She has been a traditional naturopath for more than 20 years. She sits on the medical professional board for this company, which is a volunteer position. And as I said earlier, she just has a way of using analogies and ways to explain this that make it very, very easy to understand and easy to see why it is such a profound discovery and how it can impact each of us. So Dr. Hoffman, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I always enjoy listening to setting out the reasons why people take a look at this. And just as I listen to you, it just reinforces for me, just how significant this technology is in so many different ways. And so I'm kind of excited that people are here this evening and really appreciate I'm going to swap the pins over there. Really appreciate people's time. I did not pay attention to this back in 2011 when someone tried to intrigue me to pay attention to this science, but there wasn't really an awful lot of science that people were really sharing at that point when it was brand new to the market. And I was heavily involved in one of the aspects of redox in a couple of different directions, even though I didn't really realize I was involved in redox, because at that point, science wasn't really using that word. That's a change that shifted, and now we have this whole field of redox biology and medicine that is really fueling the way that traditional medicine is looking at what is the implication of these signals and what do they do, because they are in every single cell of the human body, and as a result of it, because they are the conductor of the symphony of life, so to speak, they control everything that happens in the human body, and we don't exist without them. I was looking at different things. You know, we often talk about how long we can survive without water and food and things like that, and we can survive a number of minutes without oxygen, but we actually can't survive more than a few seconds without the production of redox signaling molecules. So that is why they determined that they were literally essential cell signaling functions. I'm going to share my screen and give us a chance to look as well as talk about aspects of this. And I hope as I move through this, we're going to be able to show you why I think this is such an important thing for everybody to be thinking about for their health. And Lynn explained some of the reasons that can be relevant. I don't know why you're here. I'd love to see in the chat, if you are a guest, you know, what is your focus and attention and the things that you would like to hear, so we make sure that we cover those. You know, I don't know whether it's stress and all of the things that go with that, feeling overwhelmed in life and dealing with work and relationships and just living, that's the challenge that causes an issue in your human body. Stress is the biggest stressor that we have, and it really creates so much havoc for our health. So I think it's really important to be proactive with your health, because sadly, the biggest piece of what's going on is below the surface. And we really don't know what those downsides are until they become big enough and they become as much of a disruption as is necessary to catch our attention, get us to the traditional doctor route, and then unfortunately have some kind of diagnosis, which is really just nothing more than the accumulation of damaged cells that have gone on for too long. Redox is the link really that to every cell and this production of energy, because every single cell is doing everything it needs to do, and thank goodness we don't have to think about what that is, because it's way too busy for us. We never get on with living life, but fortunately there's this automatic system going on producing energy in every cell, so that each cell can do something, so that we can breathe, so that we can talk, so that we can live our lives. But without it, you know, we really don't go anywhere. And so whether we have enough energy every single day to fuel the amount of demand that our body is requiring, it's like the fuel we stick in the fuel tank for our car. You know, you may find that your energy just doesn't seem to run as long as your day does. And those are things that you can't get done as a result of it. But this is where the problem sits. And we're going to talk about that part of it. What we're looking at is cells. Every single cell in the human body makes up every organ system. And if we think of them as batteries, which is really what they are, healthy cells are fully charged batteries. They've got a different frequency from a cell that's already expended some energy to help us do things, that can get recharged again at the end of every day. Or a chronically sick cell, or even worse, one that really is pulling us into the end of life. And so they have different frequencies. The goal for health is to have a fully charged, healthy cell with a good frequency in every single cell. And as they change, which is what happens as we live, because they have a natural lifespan and they die off and they should be replaced, it should be replaced with a nice, new, fully charged, healthy cell again. And when we're young, that's exactly what's happening to us. But when we get older, we don't really get to replace those cells at the same level, the same power output. And so we begin to see the change in the capacity to function as we want to. What we're looking at here is an example of what's actually taking place on the inside of every human cell, right? Damage and oxidation, and finally cell decay. Those apples are really just a representation of what we look like when we're young, and then the changes that take place over time become visible on the outside. But that is oxidative stress as we know it, rusting from the inside. Here's an example of what actually happens, right? Looking beautiful on the outside like those apples, and then gradually that decay and that oxidation takes place on the inside, and we start to see that as we get older. Now, so we talked about the fact that our cells are producing the energy for us to exist, to do everything. So it's a thing called ATP, and we're looking down in the cell's own batteries themselves. They have these little things called mitochondria, which are the way that we generate energy. We take in the food that we eat and the fats and the sugars, and we burn it to produce this fuel called ATP. The science has discovered that instead of these useless byproducts, which is what they thought they were back in the 60s when scientific instrumentation wasn't so strong and so brilliant and wasn't able to dial down to these minute little molecules and work out that they were not simply useless but totally essential. We produce these things called reductants, these negative charges and positives, these oxidants. And if you think of those as like the wires in your electrical wiring, right? Reds and blacks, that's the same, the positives and negatives, and they're all there for a purpose because they're fueling energy and electrical current in a different way. And we're doing this within our cells and basically passing around the hot potato of that positive charge and trying to balance it off and put out the fire with those reductants. And we keep moving this energy around, which is why we're alive. Now, reductants and redox as a whole come from reductants and oxidants. That's how science has blended these two words. But it is, as I said, it's like the conductor, the operating system of the human body. And when we're in balance, which is our goal through life, we start off in abundance and balance, and that shifts with time. But the goal is to keep it as well balanced as possible because that equals health. So the supply and demand is the challenge, right? When we're young, we've got lots of supply to meet the demand, and we can keep that balance pretty much in place, looking and staying healthy. But the things tip and change as we move on. Now, oxidants serve a purpose. I think we probably always thought from the old science of oxidative stress before they realized that it was a lot bigger than just oxidation and antioxidants. These serve a purpose. They're like the smoke alarm in our house. They set off the alarm within the human body to say, we've detected a damaged cell and we need your help. We need you to come and find it and solve the problem of where it is. Now, we all know, same thing in our homes, if that smoke alarm goes off and it stays ringing for a long, long time, we've got a problem somewhere in the house. We've got a fire, and that fire is causing damage if we don't find it and put it out. It's the same thing in the human body, and the fire alarm response, so to speak, within the redox reaction is these reductants. So this is going to come and help solve the problem when it hears that there is an issue. The body then directs the second part of this mechanism to where those damaged cells are, and the body swoops in and it makes determination. Can I repair this cell? Or is it damaged beyond repair and we need to make it die off and replace a nice new healthy cell in its place? Or is it sick? Is it damaged? Is it doing things and causing havoc, such as replicating furiously in ways that are not healthy? And those are ones that we also need to trigger that cell death, kill them off, stop that bad conversation taking place, and maintain health again. And why do we know so much about redox signaling? Well, there have been multiple Nobel Prizes awarded for areas of science and research in redox biology. This is where it all began back in 1998 with nitric oxide. That is one of many redox signaling mechanisms. I actually was working with this back in 2010, but it wasn't called redox. It was just called nitric oxide. That's all we were working on. We were looking at measuring levels in the human body, trying to improve levels because of the benefit to the cardiovascular system. You've probably got a redox signaling molecule in your house, and you may not necessarily know that, but a little brown bottle that sits under our bathroom sinks, for instance, and is hydrogen peroxide, that is also a redox signaling molecule. There are multiple signaling molecules, and these are just examples of single ones. So as a result of that Nobel Prize, this has propelled the way that health science is focused. Society for Free Radicals and Oxidation actually changed its name for Redox Biology and Medicine, because they realize that, as I said, it's much more than just oxidative stress. And we will see uniformly around the world, most major universities are actually studying redox biology and its benefits for health. And some of them, such as the University of Nebraska Medical Center, actually has a complete department focusing on redox biology. I was doing some research today just to check on where we are on the NIH website. We're still over 300,000 published studies on redox on the pubmed.gov if you're a science guru. But if we go to Google Scholar, we're between 1.7 million and over 3 million published studies there. So if you're looking for additional research, make sure that you go to Google Scholar. Don't go to Google. That's not where you do scientific research. And you'll find just the massive breadth of what is happening, because this is where medicine is going. But we're not going to talk about medicine. We're going to talk about a development of these redox signaling molecules that brought this to the table outside of the pharmaceutical arena. And it's as a result of this gentleman called Verdis Norton. He actually ended up purchasing, and we can talk a little bit more about this story, he purchased 10 years of publicly traded research because he was involved in looking at financing for them to continue doing research in this medical arena toward drug route options. And in the process of it, was able to put together an investment group and purchase these 10 years of published studies and research on it, because he realized that they had something very unique there. Why the sparklers on the right? Well, because scientifically the challenge was they were already producing redox signaling molecules in small machines. They could generate them, and that's how he came to experience them personally and realize they had a physical benefit. But that's also why we know so much about them. It's not that they're new. They might be new to us within the nutritional arena or the public arena, but they're not new as signaling molecules. Been making them for 30 years, which is why there's so much research. The challenge was that they didn't last very long. And he did something unique, pulling this together, taking this research, which is the basis of what we're going to talk about tonight, that we all use, and pulled together some more PhDs and a different research approach to it, and came up with the challenge, which was, how do we actually stabilize something that's as fleeting as a sparkler, as a spark? It comes and goes in our human body very quickly because it has to go to work. And how do we stabilize something that's that volatile and fleeting outside of the human body in a way that could be of any benefit to us? Now, he did the impossible, and I would encourage you to look at that really most fascinating story on amazingmolecules.com. And we'll talk about a pivotal point in that whole process that has been the groundwork for why we have this company. So what does the human body do? Well, the human body within those cells is taking the liquid of life, right? Saline. That is what we're made up of within our cells. It's what every cell is bathed in, is saline. And what's saline made of? 4 chemical components: sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now, the body's pretty smart. Those mitochondria break it apart and they reorganize it into at least about 20 different signaling messengers called redox signaling molecules. Now, we're not quite as smart. They can do it in a nanosecond, but our publicly our patented research rather, and our proprietary technology enables us to literally replicate what's happening within the human body. It takes us longer to do it, but we end up really regenerating exactly the same signaling molecules. So what you will see, if you're a Google person, not a Google Scholar person, is that you'll see a lot of people who love to say, oh, it's only salt water. Well, it starts with salt water, yes, absolutely, because that's what the body starts with, and we have to do exactly what the human body does if we want to make the same signaling messengers. We can't add something in there. We can't take Himalayan mineral salts and salts of those type, because that's got all sorts of other things in there that is not in saline. And we would never come up with those redox signaling molecules. So yes, we start with salt and water, but it's a transformational process that is putting different signals of electrical function into the process, breaking those bonds apart and then reorganizing them. And then with the brilliance of the patents and the research and our understanding with our scientific technology, we're able to literally measure the activity levels of those redox signaling molecules and kind of lock them off, suspend them, so to speak. It's like human cryogenesis, I guess. We suspend them and we lock them in time until we actually start to consume them, when we really unlock the door to the potential that they provide us. And here is where that magic happens. This is our FDA registered facility in Utah. This is the only place in the world that actually provides and creates, because of all the patents and proprietary technology, literally right down to some of the physical components of the machinery that we make ourselves with 3D printing. So this is such a unique process. It is so highly protected that everything is made in this one facility. And from here, it is shipped to 19 distribution centers in order to serve a market that covers 33 countries in the world. Phenomenal opportunity. So when you actually get an account to say, I want to drink this, I want to be a customer like most of us are doing, this is where it's going to come from. And it's going to come from here direct to your door. It gives you that guarantee that it's fresh product. It's changed, the expirations are moved through pretty quickly for that purpose. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee on it. You know it's not tampered. You know it's not fake. There's a lot of fake stuff on the market, third party. So please don't buy it from anywhere like Amazon and things like that. We do test what's there, and it actually is illegal for them to sell it. But we find tampered, expired, and fake product. So you want to make sure that if you're going to spend your money, just as I do, that I really want the real thing, and this is where you're going to get it. We manufacture as a nutritional company to the highest possible standards. We meet the same standards of manufacturing as drug testing companies, drug manufacturing. You can see all of the validations that we have on the left. Well, one of the other things that I think is also unique and special and missed by those people on Google who love to say this is just salt water is that they don't take a look at the validations. Third-party validations, the blue bottle, the blue label on the right with Bioagilytics, has been a third-party prestigious company out of North Carolina who has taken every fourth batch of ours, independently tested, and they validate that it is redox signaling molecules, not salt and water. That's your guarantee that you're paying for something real. But in the last few months, what we've had is an addition to who is validating and testing and also researching our product. This comes out of Spain and out of Germany, with two prestigious redox technology-based companies. And they are, again, testing our product, validating that it is certified redox signaling molecules, and taking our product and doing peer-reviewed study on it to be able to show us the brilliance of this science that we have, and more to broaden our boundaries and where we're going to go with what we can do with these products and product technology. So this is a fully validated product technology. Now, how do we know that it's important for us to do anything like replenish what we're naturally built with? Well, because we actually know that at the age of puberty, kind of around 10 to 15, we start losing the production of these signals by 1% per year. That's 10% per decade. Not only do we lose the quantity of them, but what's left becomes less efficient as we age. So by the time we're in our late 60s, as I am, all right, I'm, batting on probably about 50 to 60% drop on what I have, and what I have naturally and what I'm naturally producing is way less efficient than it would have been in my 20s and 30s, which is why I operate differently than someone who's in their 20s and 30s. But the beauty is that for the first time in history, since we were the first and still remain the first and only company in the world to stabilize, we've got something that is proven in clinical studies to be totally non-toxic. You cannot be allergic to it because, as Lynn said, not only are pets and plants and us, we're all governed by these signaling molecules. But it is also really fascinating to me as a practitioner that it is totally transparent to medication. What does that mean? That means that if you're taking medication, you can add this into your regime. It's not going to interfere with your medication that your doctor wants you on. But it can support the natural function for your cells to begin to kind of repurpose their GPS in life, so to speak, and begin to know with much more accuracy what they should be doing. And if you can replenish and revitalize and restore the way that we were functioning, and we can push that back to be the way it was many years ago, then the chances are we might not need as much medication as our doctors have us on. And if that's the case and you start to see changes in your health because you benchmark everything that's changing, your doctor's probably going to help you get off some of those medications. So this is the flip that goes on. We begin to see with age and illness, there's this flip that goes on in that we're able to not really meet the supply that we need any longer to counteract that excess oxidation that's happening. Redox signaling molecules do these important functions. They keep our gene conversation, our genetic signaling at peak performance. Why is that important? Because that's the language of our DNA. And that's the thing that builds the blueprint of you and me. And surely if we want a good blueprint, just like building a house, we want a pretty good conversation and exploration and development of that blueprint to make sure that it's built accurately. It naturally protects the normal lifespan of a healthy cell. That'll vary in your eyes, to your stomach, to your bone. They're all different lifespans from days to years, but it protects that natural lifespan. It helps, as I said, to repair or replace and help the recovery process in either damage or illness. And the other key thing that would have really been important for people who were struggling with their health over the last 2 years and really focused on how do they keep themselves in the best shape would be adaptive response. That's your innate immune signaling system. I put that karate person there because that's exactly what it's like. Our innate immune signaling is up there. It's ready to spot a threat and it's ready to respond to it to protect us. Now, SEER also does its own clinical studies. We know that we activate our own internal antioxidants, glutathione by 800%, superoxide dismutase by 500%. You may be taking nutritional supplements, but there isn't any way on this planet that any of us could sit and consume enough antioxidant supplements in a day to match what our body's designed to be producing 24/7 in every single cell. That's the role of these activated antioxidants. So that would be an important piece to helping your body stay on high alert and defend you as you move forward through life. Protects oxidization of LDL and DNA, and actually, as I said, affects the genetic signaling. That's what redox does. But in a study, there's a double-blind placebo study, 100% of the people drinking the redox in that group had a 31% improvement in the way that their genes signaled. This was actually a test done on healthy 35-year-olds. Now, on their blood was tested before the start of the study, and it actually found that their genetic signaling had already started to turn off. Did they feel that? No, we don't feel that. We only begin to notice after many years the challenges when it didn't do the right thing, because then we've got a problem, right? But they tested their blood and they put them on 8 ounces of Acera a day for 8 weeks, and they retested their blood and they saw this uniform 100% response in these genetic pathways on the left. So immune function, inflammatory response, those are the two major legs and stilts of health, right? If they're not strong, everything else begins to fall apart. Cardiovascular health, gut improvement, digestive enzyme production, hormones, and vitality. Those are really important, major areas and really affect most of us in one shape or form. I think what's also fascinating was the placebo for those people who love their Google and their salt stories, all right? It was the saline that we actually take and we put through, and I didn't say this, it takes us 3.5 days to be as bright as the cells are, right? We have to go through 3.5 days of moving this product and reorganizing the frequencies and the pH and to lock it in and be the redox. The body does it in a nanosecond, but placebo suggests that if we think something could be beneficial, that we're going to see a change. That's how double-blind studies work. Well, this is unique in that our genes didn't change, not a single shift. So if we thought that it should have benefited us, our genes still were unresponsive to that kind of normal thought process. So this is a phenomenal study. I wanted to show you that gene signaling pathways are single words, but they are like dominoes and pathways. They open up multiple doors that affect multiple things. Take a look at what's in blue, because if you have a strong pathway within the inflammatory signaling that can support mood, healthy mood, even mood, and gut health, wouldn't that be beneficial? Absolutely. And if you have gut problems, you're bound to have cognitive problems as well with pathway 1-1. They go together. So leaky gut is leaky brain. Understand that's just, you can't get away from that. It's the way it works. Improving brain cells, that's the important command central that needs to be peak performance through our life. Improving our sleep function, which restores us. Helping our body know what to do with stem cells when we're producing them. Regulating thyroid signaling and supporting the redox function involved in blood sugar issues. All of those would be important, but just understand redox works uniformly. It is what we call non-targeted. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a target. What it means is its target is not just your adrenals or not just your liver or not just your heart, right? Which is how we work when we're using supplements. It is non-targeted. In other words, it works on every single cell to upregulate and improve the capacity of the cell to say, oh, I know what I should be doing in a much more efficient way, and I know what I've got to do and where I need to go to do it. So how do we take this, and what's the intersection that's the key piece? And that is time and demand. I don't know how much your body's going to need to meet its demand. And I don't know how long that's going to take you to find that point, because everybody tends to consume different amounts. But it is critical if you want to actually accelerate and shorten the timeline and see the improvement because of the demand that your body has to rebuild the number of signals. Then the more you drink and the quicker you drink it, the faster you're going to see that benefit. So we can tell you that if somebody was to drink 4 ounces a day for a week, 15% of people would see something change. Does that mean it's your major thing? If you've got creaky joints, no, you may find that thing that changes in the first week could be that you sleep better and you have more energy, your focus is improved. Those are signs that things are changing, that the demand your body has is going there and it's using it. The month in, about 50% of people are seeing it. But as I said, if you want to accelerate that, double up and go to 8 ounces a day, which is what we do in our clinical studies, and really saturate quickly in that first month to kind of move that timeline along a little faster. We do know that at 3 months in, 90% of people are beginning to really see those things that they're looking for and feeling good about their changes. But that is because we are probably 3/4 of the way through changing your blood cells once. I'll say that again. At 3 months in, we are 3/4 of the way through changing your blood cells once. It takes 4 months to move through the blood once. So I believe that that is why most people are beginning to see better improvement and more significant changes at that 3-month point, because we're beginning to really improve and revitalize a larger percentage of the blood. Lynn mentioned we have athletes on this, Olympic athletes. What I want you to take away from this is that if an Olympic athlete can use a product technology, that means that there's been a rigorous amount of vetting given to that product before they're allowed to consume it. What does that tell me as a non-Olympic athlete? If it's good for them, it's good for me. Right? And why do they use it? Because we know from studies at Appalachian Human Performance Labs, when we've taken mice who weren't on a sear and we've made them run around rings on their little cages, and then we give them a sear and we make them run again, they run 29% longer. Mice don't run on a wheel for the sake of it. They really don't. And we see that translate for the athletes. Increased endurance and performance, better mental focus and cognition. Could we not use that in our lives? And remember, I said that the process of existence is producing energy for every cell. And some people require a lot more because they push their bodies a lot harder than somebody else does. So if you find, whatever your lifestyle is, that if your day is extending longer than your energy supply, then this is a benefit for you, right? It's going to power you to be more effective in your life. And I don't know how that could apply to what could it change for you. Maybe it means you could finish more things that you're not getting done during the day. Maybe it means you've got time to go out and socialize or play games with your grandchildren or play tennis in the evening. I don't know what that means, but just ask yourself, what can it mean for me if I can actually power my life in a better way through taking this supplement? This is a really important piece. This is the piece of the redox technology. We've been talking about the liquid, but this is the liquid in a stabilized form. It took them 5 years to find out how can we actually take those bioactive molecules, not activate them, but suspend them in something that we could put onto us topically. 5 years. Why? Because these are very reactive molecules and we couldn't have anything that actually would make them work before they could be put on us. And so we have this beautiful product. It's thought of as the anti-aging piece, right? So lots of us love to use it on our face, on any part of your skin, right? Every skin is aging and it slows down over time because, again, the cells forget the conversation about what they're supposed to do. They forget that they're supposed to renew as quickly as they did when we were younger. So we look different. But in 28 days, as you can see from those clinical tests, we can actually speed that up by 16%. In other words, you're moving back in time of how fast your skin is turning over and how much younger you can look. Changes things between 20 and 23% in elasticity and wrinkles and smoothness, and improves blood flow with 4 ingredients, none of which are toxic, right? This is truly the cleanest skincare product on the planet. But it has a very unique application, which the athletes love, and this was how I tested it in my clinic. I don't know if you have something that hurts, right? We all seem to have things that ache these days. Sometimes they can be very severe, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're things that don't move so well, like fingers give up moving, knees and joints and ankles, backs, hips, shoulders, you name it, it happens, right? Life happens as we get older in particular. But if you've got something that's uncomfortable or doesn't work, here's a great way to test this out. Why do we say test this out like this? Because when we drink, what did I say? 15% of people are going to see something in a week. So if I give you a quick drink of it, are you expecting to see something? No, you're not going to see something. Your body's going to take a while to use it and then reveal what it's going to do. This is a beautiful way, not only to build your own belief in what the body is doing with these signals when we get them, but it's also a wonderful way to build your belief in the importance of this technology by taking it and asking your friends to give you feedback. I did the same thing. My friends in this case were my clients. I took it into my practice and I said to everybody who had anything that hurt, I'm testing out a product. Can you give me some feedback? And here's what we did. Rate your level of discomfort. If it's your knees, or you can't walk up and down stairs, if you can only get halfway up, walk that flight and see how difficult it is and rate that level. Maybe it's a 7 or an 8 for you. Rate the level of discomfort. Take the gel. It is the liquid with the stabilized silica clay in it. So shake it up, because when it sits, it will break down. We have a minimal amount of the clay in there just to suspend the liquid so that we can use it, but we don't have lots of extra. So it does kind of separate out. Find the area that's hurting, and I want you to take a good raspberry amount, or maybe more depending upon the area, if it's your hip or your back, and apply it to the skin. You can see it's completely colorless. It doesn't have any kind of smell. Obviously, we all love it for the wrinkles, and we'll apply it, after washing our face morning and evening. But I want you to apply it 3 times in 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes and go check it out again. If you were walking up those stairs and you only got half a flight, go walk those stairs again, and maybe you'll see that you're going a lot farther. All right. Why do we do that? Because this is a beautiful way to know how quickly the body grabs hold of these signals and starts a conversation. And I would suggest to you that you're going to be pretty surprised. When I did it, 10 out of 10 people could tell me that they could see significant changes in one sort or the other. That is a game changer. If you're thinking about, do I want to share this with people, go build your belief and find your friends and ask them to give you some feedback. Here's examples of the clinical study in changes of those things that we talked about: wrinkles, fine lines, skin irritation, elasticity. And this is our complete technology. We're not a large amount of products, thank goodness. The first 2 on the blue and the white, as we call them, are pure redox. The ones on the left, rather, are pure redox on the blue and white bottles. And in the center is the materials that come from organic whole food supplements that we need. This makes up for the things that are not in our food, and is the materials on which redox works. So we have to have those materials, and this is the beautiful synergy of the 2 together. On the right-hand side, we have taken the science of how we can use botanical ingredients in the red, blue, and yellow packets. And these are an on-the-go way to actually impact and create specific redox functions in a very quick and easy way to feel them. The yellow is for energy, sustained energy, not hyper energy. The blue is beautiful for a sense of overwhelm or anxiety with mood. And Redox Mind, the red one, is beautiful for focus and concentration. And we also have the only redox skincare products in the world. These are based on published peer-reviewed clinical research, and they are an amazing way to actually fuel and improve your skin. I want to show you that this is what we think of with aging from left to right. We start to have more wrinkles, more irritation, more inflammation within us. But when we actually replenish, revitalize, restore, right, you can actually see how it is recharging the cells, not simply from the outside, but also from the inside. The spirit and the energy in that human body on the right is very diminished, but you can see that she has more and more energy for life in that face as we move her. That's Rosie as we go from 84 to 91. We have resources for you in our Facebook group with See a Healthy Self. We listened to one of the stories, number 28, from Real Redox Results before we started. And gettingyounger.club.com is also a great resource that Dr. Silverman has put together to help you find all sorts of things on redox. Lynn, I want to pass back to you and pick up on that story of why are we where we are as a company, and the ethos that goes behind that decision, and kind of what's kept you here, because I think we're probably all the same. I could imagine there's probably 99% of us are much the same, right? We came to this as a product, not thinking about anything else, and somehow it's kind of wrapped its way into our life, and we're still here sharing avidly and being, a very focused volunteer army in terms of volunteering and choosing to do this. But what about you? Tell your story.
It's exactly as you said. I looked at this. Many people know my daughter had a serious health challenge. A healthcare practitioner brought this to us, but once I saw what it did for her, I just naturally told my family about it, told some friends about it. but I really didn't know a lot about it. I started to learn about it. Dr. Silverman, your colleague on the board, was doing some presentations in the town where I live. So I started to go and learn about it. And it was really fascinating to me. And I started to meet some of the people involved in it locally, enough so that it piqued my interest enough to go to a conference that ASEA was having, because I wanted to know a little bit more about it. I wanted to know more about this company. And what I found actually really surprised me. I had heard about the Genesis story, which I think you mentioned earlier. And I really got to meet the people behind that story. And just to expand on that a little bit tonight, for those of you who, might be looking at this from the business perspective, why would you even get involved? Vertus Norton is a fascinating man, just a brilliant strategist. And when he came across this technology in the original company and ended up buying the patents and buying the technology, his whole idea, because he was a businessman, was to flip it. He was going to stabilize the molecules, and he thought the best way to get it out to the world was through big pharma. And because of his contacts in the Fortune 50 world, he had one pharmaceutical company in particular who was very interested. They flew in their top scientists and they made him a huge offer. They realized what he had was profound, but they also had a caveat to that check that they wanted to give him. And that was that anybody he had on the product, including himself, had to come off it because it was not going to be publicly available anymore. And he had started a focus group, like you do with any new technology, whether it's a consumable or not. You want to see how it's going to go over in the world if you're going to put this on the market. And he had 40 people. They were friends, neighbors, church members who all had different health problems. They had access to as much of it as they wanted. And they were all seeing some incredible benefits. And when he went back to them after a couple months, those 40 people had turned into 120 people in a couple dozen countries, because just like we all do when we are told about something or experience something that is life-changing, we want to share it with the people we know and love. And that's what had happened. So when this company told him that he had to basically shut down and walk away from it, he told them that, ethically, morally, he could not do that. He would not be able to live with himself if he had done that, because there were a few of those people who were still here because of this technology, or so they felt. They were attributing it to that. We can't make any claims. And so when he turned down that check, he created this company called ASEA. And that decision is what really started and instilled in the company and in the culture of this company, this ethos, this desire to make a difference in the world, to put humanity first. And that has played out. I've now been working with this company for 9 years. I have seen that play out in these 9 years in the way they treat the people in the field, like you and I, who are helping to share this, the way that they have their humanitarian arm, the Advancing Life Foundation, where they have projects that they are working with all over the world to end suffering, to end poverty and abuse and things like that. And every decision they make is to move not only the culture forward, but to make sure that they are here 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So if it's something that, switching over to our business hats, if this is something that some of you are wondering what it's like to be part of, when I've been an entrepreneur for decades, and whenever you're looking at a business opportunity, there's a few things to look at. One is, what kind of culture is there, right? There's so much corporate greed in the world now. It's very refreshing to know that there are some companies out there still who put people first and principles and purpose. So that's a big thing, I think, as a box to check. The other is, do they have something that is unique in the marketplace? Well, you heard Dr. Hoffman say that a number of times in different ways, that ASEA is the only company that's been able to stabilize these molecules in a bioactive form so that we can replenish what our bodies are no longer making. Do other people make these molecules? Yes. She mentioned all those universities, NIH, all these biotech companies. They're making them in the lab, but they haven't been able to stabilize them so that people like you and me can take them. So that's a big thing, is to have something that's unique and high impact in the marketplace. And then, is it going to be around? What's the longevity of it? You know, there's so many companies out there now that are in there to make some money and then just go away. There's companies out there that want to be here for a long time, but we know that the reality of it is most new companies fail within the first 3 to 5 years. This company is 13 years old and just getting going. So if you're looking to have an impact beyond yourself, you know, once you realize what this is and you get your experiences, if you want to become a health ambassador, if you want to link arms with us, all of these things are boxes that you can check when you start to work with this company. And that's why I am still here 9 years later. You know, the product stands on its own. I will never be without this product, but it's the community, it's the culture, it's the type of people that are drawn to ASEA. And it's the fact that part of their culture is to power potential, right? It's not just the potential that their products give us for health, but it's the human potential. And I think that's what surprised me the most when I went to that conference, was how much emphasis they put on personal growth and development. And I've watched that. And the people that get involved with this, they are not the same person a few years later. They have just grown and become someone different. And I think that's really so much more to this than people think, that I really like on Tuesdays that we get a couple minutes to talk about those other aspects of the company besides just the remarkable product. So I know I saw some things going by in the chat with questions, and that is just as important for us tonight to make sure that all of you get your questions answered. So I'm going to send this back over to you, Carolyn, so that we can get those answered. You're muted.
Thanks for the reminder. I just want to just wrap up before we move into the Q&A piece, just a couple of things. First off, you know, we're in, as we made that decision not to go the pharmaceutical route, so we're not allowed to diagnose, treat, and cure. And that doesn't go, it's not just about us and about ASEA, it's about everybody in the nutritional arena. Those are the guidelines of the FDA, that as far as they're concerned, only drugs can cure things. So, you know, I'm not allowed to speak about diseases and say, yes, that's absolutely going to solve that problem, but I will talk about function and try to connect the dots for you between, you know, the function that's behind that challenge that we have, and, you know, how this can help support function, because these are what the redox molecules do anyway. Want to also say that I think I covered the other thing, that it's non-toxic. Oh, and I know the other thing is that sometimes people will talk about, I'm on a salt restricted diet, can I take this? The amount of sodium that's actually left by the time we go through the 3.5 days is very little sodium in there. It's about the equivalent of around a carrot's worth of sodium or a slice of toast. So there isn't anything that stops someone who's on a sodium restricted diet consuming this product, which is great. The other one would be blood pressure. I think sometimes we do see the blood pressure would be the only one I would say start a little slower if you're not certain about yourself and how toxic you are, or certainly if you're on a lot of medication, because we do find that people are more toxic. And when we start to restore balance and support the body in doing what it's designed to do, it's going to clean house. And if we clean house a little quickly, sometimes the blood pressure can rise as a result of it. Think of it as a crowded corridor. So if you start slower and make sure that you keep well hydrated, you're going to allow that process to be more gentle and not cause any issues. So I'm just going to stop the recording and then we'll go